Hello everybody, I'm Eileen Fernandez-Parker from Cultivating the Learning, and today's topic is portfolios. We're going to be talking about the why, the how, and the what in this section. So this is just going to be an introductory video for you. So why use portfolios in personalized competency-based education? Well, we already know that there are 4 pillars in personalized competency-based education. We've got our student agency, we have our learner profile, we have learner pathways, and we have flexible environments. So with student agency, we already know that setting goals is very important for students to be able to own their learning. Tracking progress is right in there with setting goals. There's no point in setting a goal if you're not going to track to see whether or not you've reached it. So the learner profile is really about know thyself. Do I make good choices based on what I know about myself? And learner profile spans all 4 pillars, but each one spreads itself over into the other ones too, which is why they're overlapping here in this image. So the learner profile and student agency, when they overlap, that's where we see reflecting on our choices and owning our learning, and then student-led conferences really lend themselves to student agency and learner profile because the student can talk about his or her own learning, therefore owning it. Okay? So under learner pathway, this is about using assessments to decide where the student needs to go. Does the student need to lap back and practice something some more, or watch a second video because he didn't quite get it, or maybe partner up with somebody who already has gotten it? Where the learner profile and the learner pathway overlap is that the profile can guide choices on the path. So sometimes the learner pathway is decided by the teacher, but the teacher needs to be thinking about the learner profile when she makes her choices. If it's student-led, then the student needs to be also considering his or her own profile before making choices. So there's some overlap there. So now with flexible environment, the classroom can be, and learning can be a flexible entity. And we can talk about pace, choosing the pace to move at. We can talk about place, where is the best place in the room or in the school for me to learn, and the task that I'm doing. Am I thinking about the place? Am I thinking about the task? Am I thinking about myself as a learner? So that overlaps a lot with learner profile too. And then mates. I need to choose the people that I'm going to sit with because I know with whom I work best under certain circumstances, right? So a certain type of activity might call for a certain classmate, and then it might definitely not call for a certain classmate, right? So those are definitely things for a student to think about. And it also overlaps with student agency, right? Am I owning my learning? Am I making good decisions? And also know thyself. Do I know how I function best? Now, where flexible environment and pathway can overlap is really in that window where the teacher gives the student choice to show mastery. So what I have seen is in a classroom with a kindergarten teacher, Christy Musey. She has a blog called I Teach with iPads, and she teaches kindergartners, or used to. And she would methodically teach her students certain apps throughout the year, and then at a certain point, she would let the students choose which app they wanted to use to show her what they know. And this sort of methodical entry is very important in using technology and in personalized learning, because if we overwhelm, then the kids get frustrated, and so do we. But if we know what we're going to be teaching and which apps we want to introduce, and then the kids master and you layer on, and the kids master and you layer on, then you should be able to, by maybe by the mid-year, be able to give kids choice in what they're doing. And my friend who is the kindergarten teacher, Christy, she was able to do that by October. She had the kids. They knew everything that they needed to know as far as technology. So why use portfolios? Because portfolios cover all of these items. In a portfolio, we can set goals and track progress. The kids can use the portfolio to reflect and therefore owning their learning. They can use the portfolio to lead the student-led conferences. They can use the portfolio to post their learner profile. And as they learn things about themselves, they can add it. It can help with the pathway because they can post their pre-assessment successes and their formative assessment successes and their summative. And they can track growth. They can, because if you use a digital portfolio, then most of the files that come out of digital learning can be embedded in a digital portfolio. If you're using analog, you might just have to have a description of what was used and what was done. And then for flexible environment, of course, for asynchronous learning, it allows you to learn whenever, wherever, and with whomever you want. So a portfolio really covers all four of these, and it could actually be the one thing that ties everything together. So starting with a portfolio doesn't have to be super complex. If it's nice and simple first quarter, and we can do what we talked about with that layering, first quarter it could be super simple, and then you can layer on and expect more second quarter, and then layer and then layer. Okay? And as they move from year to year, the portfolios can get more and more complex. Okay, so there are three types of portfolios. You've got process or growth, showcase, and evaluation. So with the process or growth, this is going to show all of the work, right? Everything they do is going to end up in that portfolio. And if you are an elementary school teacher, you might want to just do a portfolio for one subject if you're going to do an all-in, because it is going to be a lot of work and it will be time consuming. So you want the kids to set goals, you want them to show their product, you want them to show whatever feedback they got, and you want them to be tracking their data. For showcase portfolios, this is going to be your best work only. So for showcase portfolios, think of this in terms of if a student is trying to get into an art school, they would make a showcase portfolio. They are going to pick and choose their best pieces of work because they're the proudest of them and because they really show off their skills. So that's a showcase portfolio. You can do a showcase portfolio. For our purposes, they're not as powerful because you don't get to see that growth. There isn't an analysis of the data and of growth. It's purely showcase. So you could use it for reflection if you include reflection in there. Evaluation now, the third one, is going to be final products. So let's just say if I am doing project-based learning, I might have a rubric. I might have to have a final product to hand in to be graded, and I might do that for all of my final projects. I also could use an evaluation portfolio for just to show the end of each unit evaluation. So I can use my portfolio as a summative evaluation tool. That might be hard in some classes, but it could work in other classes. Okay, now for the format, there are basically two formats. One is analog, right, or paper and pencil, and the other is digital. So some people determine these by saying portfolio and e-portfolio, right? So what we're doing in our class is using Google Sites for our portfolio, so we'll be following up on that. Okay, now data notebooks versus portfolios. If you're doing some of your own research, you might be seeing that data notebooks and portfolios can be very similar. So let's just talk about it. So data notebooks clearly include a lot of data, right? The kids are going to be tracking their progress. It could be how many words they've mastered. It could be which standards they've mastered, or how they've done on their tests. If you're not doing mastery based and you're still doing percentages, it could be, how did I do on this quiz? What grade did I get? What are my next steps going to be? So it's not just about charting data. Your data notebook should really be a SAR notebook, SAR, set goals, analyze goals, and then reflect. So how well did I do? Why did I do as well as I did? And what am I going to do next time to either get the same results or better? Okay, now a portfolio really already contains everything in a data notebook. You should still be setting goals and analyzing goals and reflecting, but a portfolio is more. In a portfolio, you're also going to have the end products in there. And this might be one picture among many. So it could, in my mind, I'm visualizing a page that might have stage 1 where they did the base of the bridge, stage 2, stage 3, right? So the portfolio, if it's just an evaluation, right? Remember the 3 types. I'm going to be focusing on the first type, the growth portfolio. So in a growth, we want to see those stages, and we want to see reflection along the way too. Feedback is super important with portfolios too, growth portfolios. So getting some feedback in there and showing that could be super, super valuable. All right, what to expect in the for the rest of this section. You're going to be seeing examples of what to include, and there is no right and wrong. You're going to make mistakes along the way. You're going to read about other people who what they think are the most important things to include. We're also going to be talking, I'm going to be showing you ideas and examples to spur your creativity, because there's not one way to do a portfolio. It's whatever works for you and for your kids. And then I'm also going to give some links to files that you can use, because being able to start with, kind of a head start is going to be super important. So I have some files that you might want to embed in a digital portfolio, and also some files that you might be able to use if you decide to use an analog portfolio. So your activity for this section is going to be to review and evaluate a digital portfolio. You're going to be expected to tell the strengths and weaknesses in that portfolio. I'm going to want you to identify parts that you would like to mimic in your class. So, I'd like to use that. That would work for me. I also want you to identify first steps that you would take to get started using a portfolio with your students. So really what we're doing here is I'm letting you know what your activity is by the end of all of the things that you're going to be learning in this section, so that you can be thinking about this in advance. And then I'm also hoping that you're going to be creating items that you can use with your students in your class. All right, so let's get to it.